This here is DJI's brand new 3rd generation handheld gimbal, the DJI Rs3, designed for small mirrorless cameras. But my big question is it worth upgrading from the RSC2, the predecessor to this gimbal? Today, I'm at a woodland wedding to test out the new features of the brand new Rs3. So first of all, don't be mistaken by the weird name changes DJI have got for their 2 new gimbals. This is not the new version of the RS2. That is the RS3 Pro, a brand new, larger gimbal designed for cinema-style cameras. If you want to know more about that particular gimbal, go ahead and watch this video here. But this particular RS3 is designed to replace the RSC2, DJI's smaller and lighter handheld gimbal designed for smaller mirrorless cameras. So let's go and have a look at the new features on the Rs3. So the first feature I want to talk about is probably my favourite, the auto locking arms. Now this is brand new to both the Rs3 Pro and the Rs3. Now what do I mean? Well, basically the arms auto lock for you. So instead of having the locking pins and you lock each arm independently or each axis, all you need to do is simply to either turn the gimbal on or turn the gimbal off. And as you can see, it auto unlocks for you, and it's the same situation when you go ahead and turn it off. Now this is really handy if you're traveling from location to location. You don't want to necessarily disassemble the gimbal every single time. Me, as a wedding photographer and a wedding today, obviously you're going from location to location quite quickly. So being able to simply press one button to either unlock or lock the gimbal is really, really handy. And like I was saying, all you need to do is turn the gimbal off, and all you need to do is auto locks, which means you can carry it to your next location without necessarily the camera flopping around and damaging the camera. Now, another really handy feature is a removable battery, something that is found on the Rs2, the Rs3 Pro, and now the Rs3. And it was something that wasn't possible on the RSC2, which is something that a lot of people complained about. So all you need to do, if you want to replace the battery, just simply press that button and the battery compartment comes off, which is really, really handy. It means you can replace it throughout the day without necessarily having any fuss. Now, the battery life has dropped by around 2 hours. So on the RSC2, you've got around 14 hours of battery life, but the Rs3 only offers 12. But it being removable means you can replace it throughout the day without necessarily completely running out of battery. And for a wedding, for long days like today, that is something that is super handy. Now, I think the biggest annoyance when it comes to gimbals is balancing them. And with the Rs3, it makes it a little bit quicker with this fine-tuned knob. Instead of trying to adjust the entire plate and camera to try and balance it backwards and forwards, you can just use this very fine-tuned knob. So you do simply unlock that axis, go a little bit forwards, as you can see it's a little bit heavy to the front now, to adjust it a little bit further back, and then go ahead and lock it off. And as you can see, that was a lot quicker on the Rs3 over the Rs3 Pro. And as you can see now, this particular camera is balanced. Now, talking about setting up the camera with the gimbal, you have now got Bluetooth control, which means you can wirelessly connect your gimbal to the camera without having any of these really annoying cables. So all you need to do is set it up, go ahead, turn the actual gimbal on, make sure your Bluetooth is connected in your camera, and then you can wirelessly connect. And if you're using the same camera every single day, then all you'll need to do is set up the kind of history, and it should wirelessly connect almost seamlessly when you turn the gimbal on. Obviously, I'd always bring a cable with you just in case you have any Bluetooth connectivity problems. It's the last thing you want, especially on a wedding day, but I must say it is really, really handy to have that feature built into the new Rs3. So what I really like about this gimbal is how small and lightweight it is. DJI basically do two gimbals. If you've got a smaller, lighter camera, like for instance my Canon EOS R, the RS3 is going to be perfect for you. But if you do own a larger camera, then the RS3 Pro is going to be better off because it has a larger creator system and also a larger payload. So it means you can put cinema lenses or larger prime lenses. Today, for instance, I've got a Canon EOS R with a 24mm prime lens, and that fits on this RS3 absolutely perfectly. And because of the detachable battery, it takes up almost no room in your camera bag, which is a big benefit over the DJI Rs2, the predecessor of this gimbal, because of its non-detachable battery. And the last notable thing is the size of the screen. It is now touchscreen over the Rs2, which you had to use this wheel on the side. So going from that small slit screen all the way to a 1.8-inch color touchscreen, which is a lot easier to change all of the settings and customize this gimbal to your preferences. You've also got on the side here a small mode switch, which allows you to change from pan focus tilt all the way to 360-degree roll, something which is really, really handy to have an actual physical switch instead of trying pressing all of the buttons on the screen, because obviously now the screen's larger, it's easier to by accidentally press. But you've also got the M button, which you can now lock the screen automatically, which means you can't actually by accidentally change it. So all of these new features make this particular gimbal really easy to use, especially if you're going from the RSC2. Now, just like the new DJI Rs3 Pro, this is DJI's third generation gimbal, which means it comes with larger motors and a brand new stabilization algorithm. They're stating up to 20% smoother footage over either the RS2 or the RSC2, which is going to be most noticeable when either walking or running. So that is something I'm definitely going to be testing out today with the bride and groom. But enough of me talking. Let's go and have a look at a few B-roll shots that I can get with the new DJI Rs3. Now, I think the big benefit of owning a gimbal over handheld is all to do with walking and running shots, something that isn't necessarily possible if you're just hand holding your camera, which is a big benefit, I think, of owning a gimbal. But with the larger motors and that 20% smoother algorithm, let's see how smooth we can get the shots by walking forwards and backwards with the bride and groom. Now, DJI, at the same time of releasing the Rs3, have also got a bunch of new accessories that are specifically designed to fit with the Rs3. One of them is the new and improved briefcase handle, which is a lot more comfortable and easier to hold than the older one that came with the RSC2. You've also got a new, quieter and more powerful focus motor. So if you're planning on using cinema lenses or manual focus lenses with this, you've got a new motor with a lot more torque, which is also quieter, which again is obviously better for video. You've also got this new vertical camera mount, which means you can actually attach this camera vertically, which is great if you're planning on creating more content for social media. Yes, obviously it does have portrait mode, but annoyingly you've got to hold it at a funny 90-degree angle. But with the vertical portrait actual mount that you can fit to your camera, it means it's a lot more comfortable to hold, and it's more specifically designed for, again, social media content. Now, you might be wondering, does my camera fit on the new Rs3? Well, here are a few tested cameras that are actually designed to fit on the Rs3 over, for instance, the larger and heavier Rs3 Pro, which is designed to take larger cinema cameras and larger lenses. If you've only got a small mirrorless camera, the likelihood it will fit on the Rs3. The Canon R7 with the 24-70mm, the Sony FX3 with the 24-70mm, the Lumix GH6 with the 12-60mm, the Nikon Z6 Mark II with the 24-70mm, the Sony A7 IV with their new 24-70mm, or even the Fujifilm X-T4 with the 16-55mm. As you can see, all of these are smaller and lighter cameras. If you do own anything larger than this, I'd recommend the RS3 Pro over the RS3. Okay, so after using this gimbal all day, let's go and have a quick look at the pros and cons to really work out, is this new DJI RS3 worth a spot in your camera bag over, for instance, the RS2 or RSC2? So the first big pro is the auto locking arms. Being able to unlock it and lock it just by pressing one button like so means you're less likely to damage your camera, which I think is a really big bonus. Being able to carry it from location to location without having the arms flopping around is basically my favorite feature on the new RS3 or RS3 Pro. Now, another big pro, I think, is the wireless technology built into this gimbal. Being able to use Bluetooth as basically a remote to connect your camera, which I think is a really, really neat feature. And I wondered why it took DJI so long to have this feature. You think it's built into a lot of remotes and even your phone these days. So being able to connect it wirelessly and be able to press start and stop on your camera using the gimbal wirelessly, an absolute brilliant feature. Now, it's not obviously 100%. Sometimes there are a few connection issues, especially if you're in a busy area. Let's say you're shooting in the centre of London. But in an area like today, a woodland wedding in Bedfordshire, the actual Bluetooth had no issues or any connection problems at all, which was really easy. Just simply set up the camera, turn it on, and away you go. Another big pro is the larger 1.8-inch colour touchscreen found on the back of this gimbal, something that was not possible on the RSC2, which means you can flick between all customisable settings, set up the joystick speed, the focus speed, all of that on the back of the gimbal without having to open up the app and Bluetooth connect it and then change the settings. So if you're after a quick setup, especially a gimbal that allows you to customise it in gimbal, then the new RS3 is a big benefit over the DJI RSC2. And the last pro of my list is all of the accessories you can get for the RS3, like for instance that vertical camera mount, which means you can mount your camera vertically while still holding it portrait, which is really handy if you're filming for Instagram, TikTok, or pretty much any social media. You've also got a larger focus motor, which is a little bit quicker if you're planning on attaching manual focus lenses. All of these are compatible with the new RS3. So there are the pros to the RS3, but let's quickly look at the cons and why maybe it shouldn't be worth a spot in your camera bag. So the first con is the actual size of the battery grip. It is actually quite painful carrying it for long periods of time, especially if you've got larger kind of hands such as myself. You'll notice that my kind of last finger kind of overlaps near the kind of USB port, which can actually be, when you're carrying it for long periods of time, quite actually uncomfortable. Now, this isn't a problem with the RS3 Pro or, for instance, the RSC2. For some reason, they've just made it ever so slightly smaller, which means it kind of pinches your fingers, which can make it sometimes uncomfortable holding it for long periods of time. It's not something that's going to affect everybody, but me personally, I did find it uncomfortable, especially carrying it for a wedding that can sometimes be up to 12 hours long. Another con is it doesn't come with a bag as standard. Now, if you buy the Pro Combo, it does come with a bag and a bunch of other accessories, like for instance, the follow focus system. But I have the standard kit here, that's the one that I'm reviewing, and it doesn't come with a bag. Now, I find for a gimbal of this price point, you'd at least come with some kind of pouch or some kind of hard case that allows you basically to protect it. But it comes with nothing. Basically, this is all it comes with, which I find a little bit disappointing, especially when you think of the price point of this gimbal. So as you can see, there's a decent amount of pros and there's a small amount of cons, which means I actually think this is definitely worth upgrading from if you've either got the RS2 or the RSC2. Simply having that auto locking feature, which means you can lock it away, makes it so much easier to carry around, and by far my favorite feature. Also having that Bluetooth, and the only annoying thing I found was that grip. It's just a little bit too small for me. I don't know why they made it just that little bit longer, even if they use the same grip from either the RS3 Pro or even the RS2. But for some reason, the grip's a little bit smaller, which means my hand just clips it a little bit and it just ends up being uncomfortable. But apart from that, I think this is definitely a worthwhile upgrade over the DJI RSC2. Brilliant, and there we go guys. So there is my review on the brand new DJI Rs3. I must say I had an absolute blast using it at this woodland wedding. I thought it was an absolute great gimbal to use with super smooth footage and far cheaper than the Rs3 Pro. But write it down in the comments below, what one would you prefer? Is it the new Rs3 or the larger Rs3 Pro? Make sure to write it down in the comments below. Again guys, if you want to like, comment and subscribe to this YouTube channel, it really helps us out, and make sure to give it a like if this particular video helped you out. I've been James for Wex Photo Video, and I'll catch you guys next time.